about lungs. So the lungs are the major organs of the respiratory system and are divided into sections or lobes. So lungs are divided in two parts, the left side and the right side, and it has the lobes, and we will study it further. The right lung has three lobes. So the right side of our lung, it is divided in three parts and is slightly larger than the left lung. So the right side of our lung is larger in size as comparative to the left side, which has only two lobes. So the left side has two lobes, obviously, because it is smaller in size as comparative to the right lung. So the lungs are separated by the mediastinum bone. This is the name of the bone, and this area contains the heart, trachea, esophagus, and many lymph nodes. So these are the vital organs present in the mediastinum part of our lungs. So this was the introduction of our lungs. So further we are going to study about lungs. So first of all, the lungs are a part of pair of spongy air-filled organs located on either side of the chest, thorax. So the lungs are present on either side, that means on the both side of our chest, and the texture of the lungs is like a sponge. You must have students, you must have seen the sponge. Have seen the spongy or sponge. It absorbs all the water when you dip it in the water bottle or in a bucket of water. So it absorbs all the water, and it has many millions and millions of minute holes. So the same is the structure of lungs. So the trachea, so it contains the trachea. Windpipe conducts inhaled air into the lungs. So when we inhale the oxygen, when we breathe and inhale oxygen, so the oxygen air into the lungs through its tubular branches called bronchi. So the air or the oxygen goes into our lungs through the vital organ known as tubular branches called bronchi, which is known as further divided into bronchi. Now the bronchi then divided into smaller and smaller branches, bronchioles, finally becoming microscopic. So further, bronchioles are we cannot see it with our naked eye, so it becomes microscopic, like we can see it only through microscopic. They become so smaller in size, and through this air is passed to our lungs. So next we come over to the bronchioles eventually end in cluster of microscopic air sacs. So further these bronchioles divide into further clusters, which is also microscopic, which cannot be seen by naked eye, and these air sacs are known as alveoli. So now what here alveoli does? In the alveoli, oxygen from the air is absorbed into the blood. So the function of alveoli is that it absorbs all the oxygen from the air, and the waste product of metabolism travels from the blood to the alveoli. So basically the alveoli, what alveoli does, it gives oxygen to the blood and carries all the waste products like carbon dioxide gas from the blood, and where it can be exhaled. So as we exhale out oxygen, as we exhale out the breathing, all the carbon dioxide and waste product from our blood comes out. So between the alveoli is a thin layer of cells called the interstitium, which contains blood vessels and cells that help support the alveoli. So the alveoli has a thin layer of cells which support the alveoli, and it contains all the blood vessels and the cells. So coming forward, the lungs are covered by a thin tissue layer called pleura. So there is a covering of lungs. There is a thin covering of lungs with a tissue layer called pleura. So the same kind of thin tissue lines inside the chest cavity. So the inside of our chest cavity, that the hollow part of our chest, the inner side of our chest, it is also covered by the same thin tissue layer, which is known as pleura. So I repeated, the same kind of thin tissue lines inside of the chest cavity, also called pleura. So this is the pleura is a thin. It can come in one or two number question also in your question paper, like what is the thin layer that covers the inner part of our chest, and the lungs covered by a thin tissue layer which is known as pleura. So you have to remember the name pleura. This is the thin tissue layer covering. So a thin layer of fluid. So next a thin layer of fluid acts as a lubricant, allowing the lungs to slip smoothly as they expand and contract with each breath. So students, as we breathe, take breathing, like inhale and exhale the breathings. So the movement of our lungs, it is accommodated and it is facilitated with the fluid, thin layer of fluid act as a lubricant. There is a lubricated fluid in our lungs, which allows the lungs to slip smoothly as they expand between the lungs and our rib cage. There is a thin fluid, right? So last, we are coming over to the functions of the lungs. So the functions of the lungs, it is very obviously that it helps in our respiration, right? So the lung and the respiration system allow us to breathe. They bring oxygen into our bodies, called inspiration and inhalation, and send carbon dioxide out, expiration and exhalation. This exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide is this process is known as respiration. So the function of our lungs is it helps in breathing. They, as we take in all the oxygen into our bodies, it carries which is known as inspiration, exhalation, and helps in the lungs helps to exhale out all the waste product from the blood, which is known as carbon dioxide. So help oxygen lungs. Another function of lungs is that it helps in the purification of the blood. As the blood from our heart passes through the lungs, all the impure blood passes through the lungs. All the deoxygenated blood is purified. Like as we exhale out all through the alveoli, all the carbon dioxide is carried in our respiration, and it comes out as a carbon dioxide as we exhale, and it gives all the oxygen through the same channel alveoli. The all oxygen is absorbed in the blood, so that oxygenated blood is taken all over to the body. So these are the basic functions and the most prior functions of our lungs. So I have provided you these all notes and the diagram also. You can go through this notes and diagram, and the more you go through all these diagrams and the notes, it will be easy for you to understand. Thank you so much, and God bless you, students.